All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Kirsten from the MassRealty communications team, here to talk with Matt Panucci about the Friends of the Blue Hills and the Blue Hills Reservation that they protect and maintain. Organizations like these are interesting to us here at MassRealty because they take care of natural areas and communities, giving us a place to enjoy nature in the city, and also helping to strengthen the community through volunteering, through events, and kind of giving us all something to care for, a bit of a sense of place. So thank you so much for joining us today, Matt. Could you please introduce yourself for us a little bit?
Thanks for having me, Kristen. And super excited to be here to talk about the Blue Hills Reservation and the Friends of the Blue Hills. So moved to Milton in 2017 and moved from Belgium. Okay. I'm an American, but we were living overseas. And, in Europe, you are treated to amazing open spaces, amazing parks. We were very close to a huge forest, and, our life was really built around the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so, finally the international experience was coming to an end, and we were moving back to the East Coast. And for us, the Boston area was new. We didn't know anybody in the area. Well, we knew one person, and she clued us into Milton, and she said, "You should check out Milton." And so, okay, Milton, find it on a map, and I saw this huge open space called the Blue Hills on the map.
Okay.
And in a big part, this is why we chose Milton, was because of the Blue Hills and all that it has to offer. So, it was about as close as we could get to the way our family was operating when we were living abroad. And so with 3 kids that are all active and a dog and, a wife, and we love to run and we love the outdoors, it was just a perfect fit for us. So moved here. And then, like a lot of people, again, I knew one person in Milton. Mm-hmm. And, you're looking for ways to connect with the community. And for me, it started out as, okay, well, what's this Friends of the Blue Hills? What's going on with different activities? And so I started volunteering with the Friends, doing trail maintenance, which is what a lot of people do when they first start volunteering with the Friends. You go out, you work on the trails, break a sweat, and that led to being introduced to people on the board, and so joined the board a couple of years ago, and then became president of the board in January of this year.
Wow, excellent. So just finding a way to kind of fit into the community and do what you guys love led you down this road to be president now, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of twists and turns along the way, but yeah, it all started with this beautiful space that we have, and the idea of protecting and preserving what we have, and that was where it all came from.
Right.
So yeah, but it's a great way. Again, there's 6 communities that border the Blue Hills, but there's lots of people that come from all over the Northeast, right? So, we've got, members of the Blue Hills from, many communities, not just the communities that border the reservation. So, yeah, I think it's always nice to find ways to connect with your community. Sometimes people do it through schools. Our kids are a little bit older now. And so, for us, our connection point to Milton was the Blue Hills and the Friends of the Blue Hills.
Right. Okay, excellent. So kind of a little bit on that track, you did touch on the points a little already, but in just a general sense, why are these natural areas so important to towns and cities and communities?
They provide kind of, technically what we would consider to be ecosystem services. And ecosystem services means that they clean our air and water. The trees store carbon, which is really important. Open spaces provide flood control, right? And stormwater is a big issue in the Northeast. And they also provide habitat for for vegetation and for animals. And we'll get into some of the flora and the fauna, I'm sure, as we talk. So practically, they're really, really important for us as residents, but also health and well-being, right? I think what we have all seen during COVID-19, of course, is this need for health and wellness and balance and emotional stability. And for so many of us, the Blue Hills has just been this kind of bastion for a place to go blow off steam and get fresh air. And
Right.
so it's really been important to the community.
Right. If anything good has come out of this is that we've realized more and more how much we need these spaces, I guess. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Right.
And, the park has been loved to death, which was a term I heard, which I thought was really quite appropriate. So, with the more traffic, again, we want people in the park. We want people to enjoy the natural habitat. We want people to be able to blow off steam and kind of reconnect with nature is so important. But more traffic also means more trail erosion. It means more trash, and so I'm
Right.
sure we'll talk about some of the ways that the Friends are helping to to fill that gap and keep the trails and the reservation beautiful the way you expect it to be.
Of course.
It's also a destination. It's not quite Six Flags, but it is a destination for not only for residents, people also looking to move into the community, but as I mentioned before, we've got visitors from all over the Northeast.
Right.
At the same time, I'm also surprised sometimes with the number of people that still don't know about us. We're 7,000 acres, 125 miles of trails.
Right.
And, people that I've met in Boston, that have lived here for years and years and years, you say the Blue Hills Reservation, they're like, I think I've heard of it, but that haven't been here yet. So, it's a great place, and it's so important to the people that live in the community, but also people from all over the Northeast.
Right.
And we're so close to Boston, right? I mean, location, right? So here, it's the biggest open space within 20 miles of a major metro area in the U.S., right?
Right.
So,
Okay.
again, 7,000 acres, 125 miles of trails. And literally, if I get up, early enough and miss the traffic, I can be at the airport to, travel for work. This is not my day job. This is my passion and my volunteer experience.
Right.
But a lot of people need to be able to commute, get into Boston, get to the airport. So, we offer, let's say, so many different aspects, including proximity to a major metro area.
Right. I can see then why you would have been drawn to move to that area when there's this huge green space that you can probably even just see on a map, and it just draws you right there. I want to be beside this park. Like, for sure. It's a great drawing. So more than just size, what is the park kind of like in terms of its geography, the vegetation? What is the park like for somebody from Boston or further that's barely ever heard of it?
Yeah, right, exactly. So maybe the first thing you would see are the hills, right? I'll call them peaks, but I think officially they're hills, right? So we've got 5 hills that are over 500 feet, which is, maybe not saying much. We've lived in Colorado, we've lived, out west, but for the Northeast, the highest peak that we have, or the highest hill that we have in the Blue Hills, is Great Blue, is 635 feet. Which also has a ski area.
Cool.
So it's the tallest hill in Norfolk County and Greater Boston, right? So again, it's not out west, but for the Northeast, it's actually a significant elevation. And again, there's 5 hills that are over 500 feet. So Great Blue is the biggest. That's probably what people would see as they're driving by. It's got the Blue Hills ski area. It also has the Blue Hills Observatory and Weather Station, which is a really, really cool place. 130 years that the weather station has been operating, and it's actually the longest continuous weather record in the U.S. 130 years of continuous record weather tracking. Which gives you all kinds of data about, temperature changes and rainfall changes, and when you start digging into climate change. it's amazing to have that kind of a resource, just also part of the Blue Hills.
Exactly. Super valuable bank of data there.
Yeah, exactly. We've had them present, they're one of our coalition partners, maybe we'll talk a bit about that, but we've given a bunch of lectures, a bunch of Zoom talks, and the observatory gave a fantastic one, and yeah, it's pretty amazing to have, again, and you can tour it, not now during COVID, but you can become a member, tour it, hike up to it, and yeah, it's just part of the community, but it's such a special place. It's actually a National Historic Landmark also, and again, they've got a great website and a great staff, and you probably could do better by checking with them directly, but yeah, so that's, let's call it part of the what you see when you drive up to the Blue Hills are the hills, right? And then, so they're actually volcanoes, right? So, 400 and some million years ago, these were volcanoes, and then the glaciers came later and kind of sculpted the hills that we see today.
Right. Okay, that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, right. Now, again, my expertise in geology is a bit limited. So, yeah, when we start talking about the details of that, I probably can't do much more than give you kind of the general overview of it. But okay. So it's a really special place in that way. You've got you also have a bunch of ponds, right? So it's also a very wet place. We've got wetlands. We've got a couple really cool, what I would call lakes or ponds. So one is Houghton's Pond, which is a great place to swim. There's picnic tables, there's barbecues, bring the dogs there in the wintertime when the swimmers aren't there. You can fish there, you can boat there, just a really cool place. It's a real melting pot in the summer also, which is great. This is where you see, people from all over the communities, come and spend a day. So that's a really cool place. Punkapog is also really, really cool. So Punkapog is kind of my favorite, loop. There's a golf course close to it, but the loop itself and the ecology itself is really quite unique. So Punkapog Bog, again, there's, people smarter than me that can tell you, more detail about it, but it's not really a wetland. It's really its own thing. Right. It's been really unchanged for more than 1,000 years, but it's a really, really special place. And there's a boardwalk that goes out onto it, so you can, visit it safely. So it's a really, again, it's a diverse landscape, right? We've got hills, we've got lakes, we've got all kinds of, the vegetation is also quite unique. So we've got some stands of trees that are over 100 years old, right? So. Great. And we've got, oaks and hickories and eastern white pine and scrub oak and, blueberry shrubs and pitcher plants and all kinds of really, really cool vegetation.
Right. Great diversity.
Exactly. Great diversity. Now, of course, a lot of that is also changing with climate change, but yeah, we've got a very rich biodiversity, and then also on animals. So there's more than 160 bird species in the Blue Hills, which is also really, really cool. And more than 15 endangered or threatened species for Massachusetts are also within the Blue Hills Reservation. Okay. So just a rich diversity of plants and animals and geography and geology also.
Definitely a beautiful, really important space then, especially, surrounded by so much metropolitan area, to be able to go and enjoy the variety of birds and plants and different things just right in your backyard. That's amazing. So definitely something that I can understand why you guys are working so hard to protect it, for sure.
Yeah, literally within the backyard. There's also a bunch of historic, prehistoric sites also, which is, I probably wouldn't want to put them all on a map, right? But it's just it's a real special place.
Lots to explore for sure, and
Lots to
discover for
explore,
yourself
yeah.
as well. Awesome.
Yeah.
So along that line, you have all this amazing topography and diversity of plants and of different elevations. So what are kind of the top attractions of the park? What activities do people do there?
It's probably easier to say what you can't do in the Blue Hills than it is to say what you can do.
All right.
So no fires, no camping.
Right.
Well, unless you're at the AMC cabins, which, maybe I'll be able to mention later. So, I mean, hiking, running, walking, swimming, barbecues, canoeing, kayaking, bird watching, rock climbing, biking. I'm sure somebody's going to get mad at me and, say that I forgot something really, really important.
I mean, you did cover yourself saying that you can do pretty much anything there that's respecting the trails and the nature, of course, right?
Exactly. and that's really key. Horseback riding, you don't see a lot of horses, but, you do, probably once a month, I'll see somebody out at Punkapog or somewhere else that's, kind of flatter and near some of the stables, private stables. People that can get their horses here, but horseback riding also, I think it's always, the right thing to do is, check with DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation. They've got all the rules of the road. It's DCR property after all. I mean, it's under their jurisdiction. They own the land. And, the job of the Friends is really to help them animate it, help them protect it, help them watch it, help them improve it. But ultimately, it's it's state-owned land. It's everybody's land. I mean, this is really the beauty of it, which is why the Friends of the Blue Hills exist, right? Is because the DCR can't be everywhere, and DCR property is something like 10% of the Commonwealth. 10% of Massachusetts is under DCR ownership, which is really fantastic. But they can't watch everything.
No, for sure.
They can't fight every battle. They can't fix every drainage. They can't they can't be everywhere. And so that's really what we do. That's why we exist. The Friends of the Blue Hills is to help protect and preserve and improve the land. So it's why we're so passionate about what we do.
Right. I think that community involvement too, and the people that live, and use the park every day are going to have just even a higher desire to help protect and maintain that park as well. So I think it's important to have these friends groups as well to, like you said, kind of give a hand to the DCR that can't do everything. Resources, unfortunately, are limited there for sure in conservation and recreation. So hopefully someday that'll change, but as well, hopefully we maintain these awesome organizations like this too.
Exactly. I think you nailed it. Yeah. So, the idea that, we have all of this at literally at our doorstep. We count on our membership. We count on, you don't have to join the Friends of the Blue Hills. We hope you do. We've got 1,000 members. We got 1,000 people that are seeing value and are committed to helping us with our mission, to preserve
great.
and to protect. But even just going out and we've got a real active Facebook page and a real active web presence, and just saying sometimes we'll get a Facebook message from somebody out that's hiking that a tree fell into a path and that happens all the time. It's really windy, right? So, even that kind of stuff, people out in the park telling us, hey, look, we need to get somebody out here to help us, remove limbs or fix a footbridge or something like that. It's great to have the community interaction, and that's what we're all about.
Right. Yeah. A community is always better when the community wants to be involved with each other. Right. And things like you said with the low resources of the other places, and even with you guys, I mean, you have quite a network, but just somebody reaching out to let you know, because maybe nobody from the Blue Hills, Friends of the Blue Hills, was on that path for the last week. So just having people to give you a shout out, that's great to see that it's such an involved community, and hopefully it just keeps growing and growing to help keep the park the way that it is.
And we do have some programs where, like, we've got an adopt a trail program, which is really, really great, where you can actually, sounds probably pretty obvious what it is, but when you adopt a trail, you help maintain that trail, and you help watch that trail. And so we can also get feedback from our trail adopters, and that's a program we've been doing for a number of years. Again, that's a cool information available on our website. Right. And we're also, something really cool happening now also is this, it's this 125-mile challenge.
Okay.
So I mentioned, earlier that we've got 125 miles of trails, right? 7,000 acres, 125 miles of trails. And, so basically what you do is you sign up, and we've had more than 400 people sign up for this challenge so far. It's only been published for the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And the whole idea is, you basically go out and hike all, or run all, or bike all, or walk all the trails. In fact, a little visual aid, right?
So, perfect.
Trail map that is, you can see where we're started to, color in some of the trails.
Right. Okay, that's such a cool idea. Yeah.
The really cool thing about that also is, and we're in the Blue Hills literally every day. And so you think that, I've been there, I've seen a lot of the park, but it's amazing. Even just today, we're out in Fall Meadow, which is kind of a not so, busy part of the reservation. And, we were on miles and miles of trails that we've never seen before.
Wow. And
you could tell also from the quality of the trail that it just had not gotten a lot of traffic. And those areas might not get seen by the community. And so this challenge is also bringing more attention to maybe some of the trails that aren't getting as much traffic. So I definitely will go back to where we were today because it was such a cool area. Right. But also, if there's something that, there's a tree that fell into the trail that needs to be moved, maybe that's why the section of the trail wasn't getting much traffic, is because it's hard to get around. And so kind of back to the community and the power of the community and the power of the Friends of the Blue Hills to get out. And once you start hiking and once you start to learn the park, you become an advocate. Never get in the way of somebody who has, kind of fallen in love with the trail. Because once you've fallen in love with the trail, you become an advocate for the trail. You become, that's your place, and you'll help us fight to protect it. And, so again, back to the community and the importance of the community. So, we really count on our membership and count on the people visiting the reservation.
Well, for me, it really stands out that it's so cool that you can be, somebody that visits the park every day, and you recently are pretty much discovering new areas as well. So this place is really huge and really phenomenal, and just like a bit of a hidden gem for how big it is, I guess, which is really interesting. Along that line, what is a little bit of the history then of the reservation? Because obviously we have these stands of trees that are really old and it's quite large. So just a little bit of how it got started and protected.
In 1893, by a gentleman named Charles Elliott. And Charles Elliott back in the day was this kind of, visionary of preservation and of landscape design and landscape protection. And so his vision actually was one of the beginning steps of the Metropolitan Park System that we know today within Greater Boston. Okay. And so what Charles Elliott wanted was to protect different parts of different topography, different geography, different parts of the area. And so he wanted some hills, and so this became the Blue Hills. He wanted some riverfront area, which became, some of the land that got protected near the Charles River, and then some ground around the Boston land around the Boston Basin. So It was kind of really his vision to say, we need to protect these places. We need to have parks. And, again, the Blue Hills was kind of part of that first step in 1893. Now, the 7,000 acres that we know today was not what Charles Elliott originally, started with. It was a much smaller piece of land. And so, step by step, it was literally over the course of the last 140 years that the size of the Blue Hills that we know today has grown to be, almost 7,000 acres. But smaller when Charles Elliott first started to protect it. Of course, the land existed, but at least in terms of, how he started, it was smaller then.
Okay.
So Charles Elliott, and there's Elliott Tower, which is this beautiful stone structure that people can visit, named after Charles Elliott. Really cool place within the Blue Hills also.
Right.
So let's call it the origin story of the Blue Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but another story that I really, really love was back in the Great Depression. So in the 1930s, there was this initiative by Roosevelt. A lot of people were coming back from the war and they didn't have any jobs, and this was a really tough time in the U.S., right?
Right.
And so what Roosevelt did was he started the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. And there was actually camps within the Blue Hills where young men would go and work. So they were paid to work. So they had jobs, which was great. And but they planted trees. They planted thousands of trees. They actually cut the ski runs in the Blue Hills ski area.
Okay.
They built stone structures within the park. And they became known as Roosevelt's Tree Army, which is a really cool piece of history. And there's still, you can still visit within the Blue Hills. One site is a little bit, let's say, more obvious than the other. And there's a nice informational sign, an old foundation of one of the camps. You can still see a nice sign that kind of talks about the history. And so, yeah, that's a really kind of cool piece of the Blue Hills history.
Right, for sure. It's great to see. I mean, this was a while ago, but governments using socioeconomic problems and pairing that with conservation issues and finding ways to create jobs and protect areas. So that's a great kind of the second origin story, I guess, the secondary origin story. That's really good, and definitely kind of something to follow, something to look up to, and try to re-implement those kind of things, which I think we're getting slowly better at. But
I think so too. Yeah. So but there's again, I mentioned before, 50 prehistoric sites, right? So it's easy to remember the last 100 years or so, but there's a ton of history to the Blue Hills.
Right, it's a great combination: culture, history, nature, and enough trails that you won't find them all in years, apparently. So anybody that's looking to move out to that area, you have lots to explore, or lots of people around the area that have no idea. Hopefully we'll start coming to check it out a little bit more.
Yeah. And I'm sure there will be, this 125-mile challenge, I'm sure there will be somebody that will finish it in some astronomically quick time.
Right.
But for most of us, it may take a few months at least.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's not a small feat, and between jobs and volunteering and school and everything else, it gets a little bit complicated. But
yeah, exactly.
Definitely something cool, especially in difficult times like these, where a lot of us don't have a lot going on. It's nice to have a goal like that, and especially a goal related to getting outside and exercise in nature. So I'm a big fan of the challenge for sure. Super interesting.
You should come and do it, right? So,
I'll put that on my list.
we've got these cool patches. There's something also very kind of retro, for hikers to have a patch, right, to put on your backpack. So we've got these patches that we're making, and there's a couple. There's the whole 125. We've got another one, which is just the Skyline Trail. So Skyline Trail is a pretty famous trail, probably the most famous within the Blue Hills. And there's certain sections that are actually quite rigorous. So we've made that as kind of part of this thing. But yeah, it's gonna take a while.
So they're like little scouts badges that you can get as you go along.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm sure some people will use their smartphone, to check off all the all the trails they've done, but nothing like a highlighter and a trail map.
Right, hang up on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Commemorate. Excellent. Well, that's awesome. There's obviously so much culture and history here and so much to do, and your organization is working really hard to protect that and let people know about that. And we talked a little bit already about the Blue Hills. You guys have 1,000 members. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about your mission or who you guys are or anything along those lines? Or do you think we kind of covered that already?
Yeah, maybe just a couple of points. So we've been around for more than 40 years, which is also, I think, speaks to, the proactivity. And, back in the 70s, somebody had to say, this great land and this great reservation we have, we should really protect it, right? So, I'm always amazed by, some of the people that thought so far ahead back in the 1970s to start this friends group, right? And again, there's friends groups spread all over Massachusetts and all over the country. But, I really give them a lot of credit to say, we've got something special here. Mm-hmm. And, started the Friends back in the 1970s. The mission has really more or less been unchanged. Now, membership has grown, which has been fantastic, right? I mean, mm-hmm. This is a member-led organization. This is really a community. And I'm just humbled and lucky to be able to work alongside and support our membership. But the fact is, we had a great start. We've had consistent membership, which has grown. We've got committed volunteers, and the mission has more or less remained unchanged. When you have what we have, it's pretty obvious what our job is, right? I mean, we want people to have a great experience in the park. And so we'll talk probably about trail maintenance and some of the activities that we do within the park. So we want to make sure, and that's all connected to, people having the right experience in the park. Let's make sure the trails are clear. Let's make sure the drainages are raked out, and let's make sure that we keep it, we don't want trail erosion. We want to keep it the way that it is.
Right. People enjoy it a lot more if it's in a way that it's more accessible for a variety of people to enjoy. And then people even outside of the membership then have the desire to also hang on to that. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So within the park, that's really obvious. Now, the other really obvious thing is that we want to protect what we have, right? So again, 125 miles of trails and, almost 7,000 acres. And you can imagine that it has been a focus of development, forever. And, that's not going to stop, right? So we spend a lot of time advocating for protecting the Blue Hills, whether that be, roads or hotels or, skating rinks or, things that all have, community, value. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we need to be able to get from point A to point B, and we need, kids need activities and that kind of stuff. But, we need to make sure that stuff happens outside of the park. Right. So we're really focused on making sure that we have, we keep what we have. And, we'd love to grow, 7,000 acres to become 8,000 acres someday. It's going to be really hard, right? Because there's so much that's been built around, and already, kind of the Boston area is a pretty compact metropolitan area. So, we've got to fight like heck every day with our membership and our community and our amazing executive director and her team to make sure that we are, watching for potential development and, working closely with our community, but also with the DCR and with other, legislative stakeholders to make sure that we protect what we have. And we've got great relationships with the DCR. We've got great relationships with our state legislators, our national legislators. It's amazing. Every time we talk to people, I mentioned before, on one hand, there's still a lot of people that don't know about the Blue Hills, but our state legislators do, our community does, our national legislators do, and, our partners within the DCR and other other agencies have been really, really great partners. So, but that's, again, the mission is about protecting, preserving. We want to make sure people have a great experience in the park, but we also want to make sure that we keep what we have.
Right. I mean, there's also just this intrinsic value that sometimes it's hard to get people to understand when there's all these development and plans around, but also just keeping that nature there, even aside from the recreation and the parks and the things, protecting those endangered birds and animals that you have, and this like super unique flora and fauna that also needs to just be part of what we do, right? So keep fighting the good fight for sure. I get that from me. Yeah, it's a long road, but at least it sounds like you have a lot of great support, so that really helps out. So how can the community get involved then with you guys if they're new to the area, if they've been here forever? What is the way for them to go about that?
Hills.org is our email.
For sure.
Website www.friendsofthebluehills.org. The website, you can learn about upcoming events. You can learn about the history of the Blue Hills. You can download a trail map. So the website is always the best place to go to find out more.
Right.
Social channels are also active. So Facebook
sure.
is, Friends of the Blue Hills. Instagram is @FriendsOfTheBlueHills, and Twitter is @FriendBlueHills.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we can definitely put a couple of those links in the video description, so people can just get a click there and head out and check it out.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. So that's, let's say, if you are just trying to get information, these are good places to go. I think there's, as I mentioned before, there's lots of stuff going on. I mentioned trail maintenance, which is so important. We've been doing it for a lot of years. It's what people, probably know us best for, because, it's physical, it's fun. We've had a lot of really long time trail leaders, and it's also visible to people. When you're out, working on the trails, people tend to, slow down and ask what you're doing, right? So we get a lot of volunteers, doing the maintenance, and then also we get volunteers from people that come across us on the trails. And we take 6 to 8 people out in smaller groups, especially during COVID. We do this 2 or 3 times a month. So that's one of the things we're doing. I mentioned before that we're also the higher traffic has also produced more trash. So we want to be able to it is it is one of the unfortunate kind of byproducts of people being out on the trails, but okay, so we're organizing a committee to help help take care of the trash. If this kind of lives under this responsible use banner, right? So people sometimes, people just don't know, where the trash receptacles are, or, the leave no trash, some of the basic regulations, people just need to be reminded, kind of what responsible use is all about. So we're doing a lot around responsible use also. Mentioned the 125-mile challenge, which, again, just so exciting. There's a citizen science initiative that's kicked off, which is, a way to, with your smartphone, go around and snap pictures of different plants, which then gets kind of rolled up into a picture of our ecology in the Blue Hills. That's going on right now.
Excellent.
And we do photo contests, which is really cool. We've got some really beautiful photos over the years, and super talented photographers. So, people can interact with us through the photo contest. And as I mentioned before, we do a lot of online programs. I mean, this is just the way to connect with the community, offer value on different topics. So we've been doing a lot of those with our partners. And we've got a couple coming up in April. And again, all this information is available on our website. We'd love people to turn out to hear the talks.
Excellent. That's so great. So many ways to get involved, so much to do. And it sounds like you guys are just coming up with more and more stuff every day. So if anybody's in that area, stay tuned.
Exactly.
Excellent. I think that covers everything that I was curious about. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign off, Matt?
Just thanks to everybody. Again, I mentioned the community, 1,000 members strong. We've got a fantastic board. We're all volunteers. We're all doing other things. Great board, got a great staff. Also, our executive director, Judy Jacobs, has been leading the Friends of the Blue Hills she's on her 17th year now. She's got a great team. So and thanks to the community and thanks to all of our partners.
All right, excellent. Well, and thank you, Matt, for coming here today and letting us know all about the Blue Hills. There was a lot of super great information, and your passion for the organization and this work really shows. So we really appreciate that. And I think anybody watching can see what an incredible area the Blue Hills Reservation is, and hopefully we'll go check it out. So for anybody, come check it out for sure. For anybody watching, I hope you enjoyed the interview today. If you would like to do an interview with us about your park, your neighborhood, museum, anything, don't be afraid to get in touch through our website or social media, and we'll see you next time.